Nathan Thornberry here, with residential warranty services and Priority Lab and Breeze products and all sorts of things, including like education products and websites for home inspectors. And we also have this forum called the homeinspectionforum.net. I often get interesting people that reach out to me on it because we get millions and millions of hits. And there was one particular one about a builder that was refusing home inspections. And today, as I was coloring my hair, I got a text from a law student. I say law student, about to start law at Tulane, Miss Megan Cook, and she's working already in a law firm. You're working as a paralegal, correct?
Yeah, as like a legal assistant.
Yes. Yeah. So I get a lot of calls because of this forum, which is kind of an internet marketing lesson for anybody. I get calls from attorneys all the time looking for kind of an expert opinion on things, but sometimes it's too specific. I can't really do much, but this was very general, and appreciate Megan participating in something that could help others, because I hear about litigation. I'm involved in litigation in real estate all the time. And I can't tell you how many, not paralegals, not law students, full out decades long attorneys don't have a true understanding of what is typical and customary in the real estate transaction, particularly as it pertains to new construction. And that world has changed a little bit over the last couple of years. So let's go with your questions, because they were insightful, and we'll go from there. And if I need to bring something up that's a little bit off course, I will.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you again for taking the time to do this. I very much appreciate it. I guess I wanted to start by, and I'm sure people watching this might already know, but get a little bit of your background, because you seem very educated and experienced in this field. I was curious if you'd been, obviously you've inspected homes in the past, you have experience with what is, what is not normal, but, what's standard and what's not. So I would love to hear a little bit about you to begin with.
So insofar as the home inspection industry is concerned, when I was about 3 years old in 1984, one of the largest inspection companies in the country started in my living room by my mother and father. And it's in Carmel, Indiana. It's called Security Home Inspections. And, it's a small business. So as with most small businesses, the whole family gets involved. And as a teenager, I used to take inspection orders, answer some technical questions, as well as type up home inspection reports. Later went on to doing some miscellaneous stuff like identifying siding to be a certain brand associated with a class action settlement like Masonite or LP, and doing some environmental testing as in my late teens. And then as an early adult, 18 years old, I go into the service contract business, the home warranty business, as they call it, and spent the last 22 years making that a nationwide and into Canada. In fact, the only warranty company that's in both the United States and Canada, and the one with the most varied products. So we have products that are, part of home inspection packages in every city in America, 45,000 zip codes covered, and Canada, as well as products like Recall Check, which check for recalls and free repairs available on appliances. And of course, our laboratory services and environmental testing equipment, which accounts for the largest part of real estate transaction-based environmental testing of mold, asbestos, lead, water, and more. So between that and being a consultant, at the very least, to some of the leading inspection companies, in fact, probably 80% of the multi-inspector firms in this country have been or are currently clients of ours, and that's thousands of them. So we see the worst.
Sounds like it.
Just in the last couple of years. And I think this is very relevant to your point, because, all of it leads to litigation, damages, a property condition issue in a real estate transaction accounts for over 90% of all the liability that comes along with it. And it is, by the way, I'm surprised you didn't ask me about the teddy bear head. I just wanted people to
I
watch
should
the
have. I love it. It's
video.
great.
It wasn't like, I mean, this isn't how I normally dress. I mean, depends on the day.
I'm
But
sure it would fit in down in New Orleans very well.
yeah, well, good. Okay, I might have to come back there. Last time I went back, there was too much puke. Anyway, I'll come back, give it a second chance. But we started in the last couple of years, 2.5 years ago, professional liability insurance, and we've been covering E&O deductibles for real estate agents, home inspectors, and related parties for a better part of a decade. So we end up being involved on some level in a lot of the litigation that happens in this industry. By the time it gets to a big issue, it's generally hitting my desk or I'm aware of it, and very few issues are we not involved in to some extent. So that's our background basically.
No, that's great. Well, then I'll just go ahead and dive right in. So your the form came to my attention because of the email that you published from Dr. Horton about how the company does not allow third-party inspections during the construction phase. Obviously, you were disturbed by that, and I was as well. So I just wanted to dive into that right away. And, obviously your take of it is on the forum, but we could talk about that a little bit as well. Talk about whether or not companies are doing that too. Is it standard practice? Is it not?
So let's talk about typical and customary in a general real estate transaction. If you're buying an existing home, unless it's a huge seller's market, as we've experienced a bit of over the last couple of years, where in order to get the house, you got to offer full price plus, no contingency for financing, nothing. Then
right.
That's where you're at. And I'd recommend paying an inspector, a home inspector, whatever you need to go with you on your showings, because you have no idea what you're getting into. And I'm the guy that has to deal with it when somebody has a 20, 50 or $100,000 issue with their house. So it happens.
Right.
Avoid it, please. But outside of existing real estate, you have the new construction, which admittedly gets in a typical and customary fashion, less home inspections by a third-party home inspector. And
why do you think that
always
is?
been the case? Well, it's always been the case because number one, people feel like they're buying something new. And last week they bought a new TV at Best Buy. They knew that it probably worked, and when it came home, they knew if it didn't work, that Best Buy or the manufacturer would make it right? And that's the presumption. And as a part of the transaction and the presentation from a builder, you end up with all of these, and this is any builder that's doing what I would call track homes, right? So they're building in mass. There is a very substantial presentation about their warranty and their follow-up inspections, that happen even, a year after move-in. So, there's all sorts of things to make sure that the customer, the home buyer feels very comfortable in the product. And then it's not really a thought. It's not even a part of the conversation most times, because most home buyers who walk into a model home, there's balloons, there's free hot dogs, I don't know, whatever they do to get people there. And when they walk in, and as soon as that client, home buyer, fills out a card or introduces themselves to the builder representative, they have opted out inadvertently, without any intention to do so. They've opted out to any of the free representation available to them if they had called a real estate agent first, who doesn't participate in one transaction every 7 years.
So once they do that, then there's no way to bring a realtor in after that, right? It's
no, I mean, not for pay, right?
okay.
And it's not like a real estate agent is making on these homes something that's going to change their lives. We're talking about a 2% or 3% commission that then has splits and overhead, and of course a lot of time involved in it. But any real estate agent that knows what they're doing If they're looking at a new construction house, I don't care on what level, they're going to suggest that their favorite inspector come in and do a foundation inspection, do a rough-in, so before the drywall, when you can still see all the mechanical systems, as well as a final inspection. And the cost is pretty minimal. We're talking about for that whole.
That was my next question. So what would this cost out of pocket for the buyer?
Sure. So all three stages on a, depends on the market, depends on the company. Like, let me give you a range for that matter. You're probably talking about anywhere from $800 to $1,500 for most homes under 2,500 square feet. And that's all.
Okay.
And these homes are, 400.
Which doesn't sound like much, but it could be a big amount,
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not huge. It's not huge. But
so let me ask you this.
A lot of buyers, they walk into that model, they opt out of a real estate agent who knows what they're doing, who is involved, in transactions all the time and knows that these inspections should be virtually required to buy a house.
Right.
And know that it happens on most transactions. Well, they're not there to guide on that. So, so it doesn't become a part of the conversation. And then, I have like 6 other reasons why it's not customary and typical, and an update, because over the last 5 to 10 years, the number of inspections on new construction has gone dramatically down, and it's no accident.
That was my next question. So what do you think the percentage is, like new construction buyers, the percentage of them that use inspections versus like someone buying a home that's already been built?
So
is there any data on that?
Already been built. If there's no, seller's market, huge competition for a particular house, we're talking 85 to 100% chance they're getting an inspection on a used house. I say used house, it's new to them.
Right. Yeah.
On a new construction house, I'm going to say definitely sub 20. I could work out the math because, we see in our systems out of, 160,000 interactions with home inspectors a month, which ones are new construction and, or at least a year built. And we could presume that it's new construction. I would say it's less than 3% for most inspection companies, less than 5% for almost all. And then just a few in communities that are, rapidly growing, where it might be 10 or 15% of their business, but I've never seen it climb very high above that.
So what do you think are like the biggest issues then, the most damaging issues that get missed when you don't have inspections like this during the construction process? Like, what are the biggest issues that you see and the most common?
Well, none of the issues can be, that big. There's a cap to how big they can be, because you do have an obligation, and this is under state laws, by the way. You also have an obligation under federally backed financing to have certain warranties and guarantees if you're particularly selling, not high-end custom homes. If you're doing track homes, things that qualify for conforming conventional financing, or FHA or VA or USDA. So if you qualify for one of those, well, they have to have these warranties, including a HUD approved third-party warranty. So, it keeps them in line, at least for the first year. If there's some massive issue in the first year, it's kind of a top end limit to that.
Would that change though if you're going through the mortgage company owned by, like, say, Dr. Horton's mortgage company?
No, it doesn't change at all,
okay.
because Dr. Horton's mortgage company, unless I am completely mistaken about their business model, and unless they have more money somehow than every bank, lender, and mortgage broker in the country, they are not keeping that paper. They're selling it. Right, it goes off in packages.
Okay.
So it has to meet certain criteria,
meet the standards. Okay,
including that HUD warranty, the HUD approved warranty.
Okay. So then, what would you say then? Because obviously the municipalities down here, we'd say parishes, they still are going to have to come in and do these inspections, right? And I'm sure they still come in during the different phases of construction, don't they?
Well, yes.
It probably
Um,
varies from place to place, but generally speaking.
they do, but let's be clear about these and make sure that we have clarity on two different types of of inspectors. So we have home inspectors that are third parties that are members of national associations in 20 some odd states, licensed as independent home inspectors related to the real estate transactions. Then there are local code inspectors, which is kind of a hodgepodge of municipal employees, both part-time and full-time, as well as contractors that are contracted out. And their obligation to find defects is not, if the city guy comes by, who had 15 minutes, by the way, he had 15 minutes to stop by and check this thing out. And I mean, who knows if he knows every code? He almost certainly doesn't. The first time I can remember having a code conversation, I was 8 and I don't know them all.
Right.
And I teach home inspectors for a living. So,
and then the inspectors have no liability either, right? Like if stuff goes wrong later, like, the guy that did the inspection is not going to get in trouble or anything.
well, there's certainly something to be said of, if we're talking about the code inspector, he works for the city. So, I'm not aware of, and I think I probably would have been aware of this if it happened, a circumstance where a municipality was sued based on their practices of code inspections. Because these are just, this is an administrative follow-up to a permit and making sure that, the city's interests are protected, and, and that we don't have the Chicago fires again. But
Right.
But that doesn't mean that they have the resources to do it. And nor do we need them to get your own inspection.
The insurance companies don't require these inspections. That seems crazy, they don't, or even the mortgage lenders, I guess, but we covered that. But the insurance,
it's different. As one of the few persons in this country that's ever owned an insurance company, like an actual insurer with 0 investors or partners, I can tell you that we don't mind claims, right? Like if it weren't for most of my clients in those pursuits and those ventures being, close to me in other ways, what if I was State Farm as an example, and I wanted to write homeowners insurance, which is property and casualty, the best thing that can happen to me based on the fact that I make money on margin is that more homes catch on fire. Insurance companies, people think they don't like paying claims. They love paying claims. They want them to happen. What they really don't want is a gigantic shift all at once, because that means that they already had their risk calculated, their premiums, onboarded, and in reserve and surplus accounts, and suddenly they get crushed by 3 hurricanes, some riots, and mudslides. Well, that's going to be a sucky year.
Right.
The executives at those insurance companies will only make tens of millions of dollars that year. Definitely, it'll they'll have to probably wait until second or third quarter to buy a new jet.
Okay, so then back to that email then. So what about that email? Like, you were obviously, very passionate about it. It obviously shook you a little bit. What about that email from Dr. Horton? Like, really just was so shocking.
So this is going to be a long answer. I really apologize.
No, I want to hear it.
I've been guilty of that a few times. So what made this one interesting was that it was an outright refusal. It was an in writing. I haven't read my post in a long time. I think the guy's name was
great. I read it today.
I think the guy's name was Clint or something like that.
Michael.
Michael? No. That was who it was to. The guy at the bottom, the guy that it came from was Michael.
I think so. And it was Jenny.
Maybe it was
Jenny,
Michael. Maybe it was Clint. But either way, it's pretty rare for a builder. And this was a local manager. It's not like this came from corporate. So, they have some defenses here, but they never actually came back to me and said, oh, when that manager said there was no inspection allowed, in writing, we're taking that back. They never did. Because
Right. Yeah, they were very vague.
yeah, I mean, we reached out, I know that having that kind of stuff out there, if it's not true and, like I don't give somebody a chance to fix something that, they could just decide to screw with me and send, 7 of their most annoying attorneys my way. And we can drain each other's bank accounts for a little bit. But sometimes it's about the bigger, what's right in principle. But most of the time, just to be clear, and this is pretty typical, as I said, across a lot of builders, it's not an outright refusal. It's not in writing like that. It's rather things where they don't bring it up, and they have these reasons. One reason, I'll give you a top reason why a builder doesn't like a home inspector, because there might be one in town that is, this really weird know-it-all. And every inspection report he puts out seems to be subjective and full of opinion, and really hard to back up with any reasonable standard. And now they're just having to take all this time trying to instill confidence in their client after their home inspector called their builder a liar. So that would be one of the reasons why they kind of back off. Another reason is okay, you get a request to do something, to fix something. Now you have to go through and you have to go back to your subs, and you have to get your subs to fix that thing. So there's this triangle of operator that becomes very expensive from a time perspective. Then some of these other issues lead to liability. I mean, and this is the way the builders would think of it is, this inspector noted this thing, later this thing that was related to this happened. So even though it's way outside of warranty, it's years later,
There's a record and
yeah. And this time it killed the dog, and now there's a jury trial being asked for. But here's the other thing. They tell them they have a warranty anyhow. Like you can come back to us, and anyone watching this that built the house, especially with a large builder, with a department that sends guys out to fix this stuff, and largely they do an okay job of it. By the way, if you bought any time in the last year when the largest part of the warranty coverage exists, pick up the phone, call your real estate agent, ask them who their favorite home inspector is, call that home inspector and have him come out and give you a report so that you have all the things to talk to that quality control guy about. It'll save you a bunch of money. But basically that's it. And now in the last few years, as I said, this has been changing a little bit. They've gotten more aggressive on this. And I think that's, part of what's bringing it to your attention. So I'm sorry I went long on that answer.
No, I appreciate it. It's all been really helpful. Yeah. So, down here, some of the issues that the homeowners are facing that own these Dr. Horton homes, mostly it has to do with like water intrusion, right? The roofs have leaks, the windows are leaking in most of them, not most of them, and many of them. They have cracks in foundations, they've got mold, there's been one account even said that her AC unit actually like fell through the roof because the AC units are in the ceiling and all the water damage, I guess, that was coming through. So all of that stuff is stuff that seems to be potentially, possibly related to either flashing that was installed incorrectly or not installed at all. And is that something that would have been caught by an inspection, a third-party inspection?
Very possibly. And, I mean, this is a slightly different issue, but it's a moisture issue. Earlier you asked what's the biggest problem that can happen.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one that we were directly involved in. I mean, this was a big builder that had a neighborhood where the houses started coming up for resale. And when they came up for resale, the first time that inspections started getting done, they realized that there was no air gap behind the brick veneer, which allows for moisture to leave, allows for it to breathe, and then all that should go down to behind the brick to a flashing. that would then push it out to a hole for water to escape called a weep hole.
Okay.
They didn't have weep holes. And this is a big neighborhood. I mean, there was 100 homes at least. I don't know, it could be a couple hundred. So, that happened on one house, and this builder had to come out, with their subcontractor who I'm pretty sure they murdered. We haven't heard from that guy again. And then they fixed it. To their credit, they tore the veneer off of this house. They put a new one on. Well, a couple months later, another house sold in the neighborhood, and guess what? And so this builder suddenly goes, oh crap, we have a problem. And maybe they were calculating that it would be a PR problem, but they picked up the phone. They called us as home inspectors. I say us, my parents' company, and Security Home Inspections in Carmel. And they called them and said, can you go out and check all the houses in this neighborhood before, we don't want to handle one at a time. Let's see what our real
So they
problem
did it responsibly then, it sounds like.
They did. So, part of it is, identifying exactly what the problem is. Was it, something that was an epidemic, now a word everyone knows, or was it a one-off situation? And what's the fix, and who's responsible for it, and how quickly was it found after construction? All of those things play into how easy the fix is.
Right. Well, and obviously down here, water is always our biggest issue, right? As homeowners. I mean, whether it's a hurricane or flooding or just excessive rain, the homes down here have to be built in a way that they can withstand that. But it's known, right? It's part of building a home down here, owning a home down here. So
if you wanted for sure, I mean, how to install flashing is a fairly standardized thing. Okay,
and there's two different kinds, right? There's the cricket flashing that's on the roof, if I'm understanding correctly, and then there's also the flashing that goes in the walls.
Well, there's more than that.
Okay.
but regardless, there's a way to build it so that water cannot, and to put it together so that water doesn't seep in. Okay. And by the way,
flashing's main job, by the way, right, is to keep water, to redirect it away from the home.
Well, basically, it's something that's generally installed at transitions from one surface type or one component and another. Okay. So picture you have a flat roof face, but it's at an angle like this, and there's a chimney right here, and it goes kind of around the chimney there at the end. Well, you have to build it up behind the chimney, to get that water to go around the chimney, but then you're still gonna have water right there against the chimney. So you put in that case, both a flashing and a counter flashing, and it will, and then it builds, back out underneath the shingles a bit. Well, that keeps the water from coming in. Right. And
this is pretty standard stuff, right? This is not
so it's fairly standard, but, just as an aside, if I had the same kind of issue that I had with these brick veneers, which was pretty obvious, and, it doesn't matter who made the brick, it still needs to have that air gap. If I had a flashing issue that was throughout a neighborhood, seemed to be causing problems often, I would determine either by removing a piece, seeing if it's stamped, or through discovery and information request, who was the sub, where'd they get their materials, or did the builder order it directly, which supply house, go to that supply house, and then, document how it's put together, get a question off to there's an engineering department or somebody who answers technical questions at every manufacturer of basically everything you put into a home, at least every big one. And, before any other standard, any other code in the book, there's one thing that's almost, universal in every code book. It starts with, follow the manufacturer's instructions. So there's your smoking gun on it's done wrong. It can be obvious that it's done wrong. It can be logical that it's going to leak. But that doesn't meet a standard to me of just done. You guys owe on this. You guys owe the fix. et cetera.
Right, and of course, and we don't want to be tedious about it either, right? I mean, every single little defect or mistake that happens in a home shouldn't lead to litigation. I mean, that's,
Sure,
that's
of course, but
yeah.
this is real stuff. It was installed multiple times wrong by who? Probably a subcontractor. The buck stops there if you're the general. And every builder runs into a problem like this. I've built homes. I built custom homes. I had the biggest nightmare ever with a floor that was installed correctly. Everything was fine, but the material itself had a problem. It was stored improperly at the supply house. We had no idea.
Right.
Months after installed, it looks like it's all rough in there. Like it's everything's curling and bowing, and it was bad news. So like it's not like anybody's infallible, but when you build a whole neighborhood with the same 5 layouts generally, and with the same contractors, you're going to have an issue.
But if the same type of layout has the same problem over and over again in all the model homes, and that's probably, that is what it is then.
Well, I mean, in theory, they had the same, order for materials and one of 3 subcontractors for that trade in the neighborhood, something like that. So I actually had, this was very fortuitous because, one of the things that you had asked earlier was, has this changed? Have builder policies changed in recent years? And I could say the answer is yes. I'm seeing it from a high level, and certainly that letter is one of the worst examples of it. But I have an inspector here from Kansas. He just happened to stop by, and I even have 2 chairs here. So I'm going to bring over Pat. And so this is Pat Butler.
Hi.
And Pat Butler is from Manhattan, Kansas.
I actually know where that is.
Do you? That's
I'm
awesome.
from St. Louis, so not too far from there.
So he's with Tallgrass Home Inspectors, and he does home inspections at largely a referral of a local real estate professional or referral from a past client. And there's certainly in his growing area of the world, even more than right here in this town, new construction. and so you would think a guy, how many years you've been in it?
Oh, well over 10, like 10.
All right.
14, yeah.
So a decade in the business. And I don't know, he needs to be louder because his voice is incredible. He should do radio. But Pat's pretty well known in his local market, and is pretty visible on a national level with other inspectors too. You would think, out of all that experience and being able to pull this off full time, a lot of inspectors starting the business don't get there. He's reached that pinnacle of success. Out of all those inspections you did in the last 2 years, how many of them were new construction final inspections?
0.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, but now let's get the comparison. How many from 3 to 5 years ago?
Oh, I'd say about 10%. About 10%.
So
Okay.
it goes from 10% of his business down to 0.
Let me ask you this. Did those 10% or that 10%, did they have realtors that were advocating for them, or did they hire you themselves?
It's a little bit of both. So
Okay.
a lot of times I'd get a call from the agent and they say, hey, I have a client who's building a house. Could you come take a look at it? Or sometimes somebody would follow me on social media or anything, and they say, hey, heard about you. I'm building this house. I hired my own contractor. He's building the house. I want you to give it a once over before they button everything up. So it runs the gamut.
So how many of the inspections though, did you ever do any inspections during the construction phase before the final inspection? On the new
How many rough ins prior to last couple of years?
I'd say about half of those. They saw half of those. It's like, they call me doing the, like it says, the frame is already built out. And right after the plumbing and the electrical is already put in, just make sure everything is, installed correctly. And then after that, then they'll button up and put the insulation and then final it out. So yeah, about half of them.
Did you feel any pushback from the construction companies ever if you found a problem? I mean, did they try to say you were wrong or like fight it or anything?
Oh, no, that never happens. No, I give it a bit towards human nature. Nobody likes to be pointed out that they're wrong.
Oh,
But
of course, yeah, I hate it too.
yeah, so there's going to be a human factor, but then for the most professionals, they'll be like, okay, show me what's going on, and then they know they run into a liability issue, so they know they just need to get it fixed. And 9 times out of 10, it's just fixed right there. So it's just a lack of oversight, or they're working with a new crew. Just run of the mill building things that just happens on a normal basis.
Okay.
So before I forget, because I think there's a concept here that because you said there was humidity and moisture issues, and you're in Louisiana, it's hot and humid, right?
Oh, it's so hot and humid, it's terrible. Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's so humid it's underwater, right? We
Yeah,
all
you
saw
like are
it.
swimming through the air. Yeah.
Barbara Bush told us all about it. And so now we know. So this piece of paper has what they call in engineering a moment. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
All right. A moment is its strongest point, most efficiently. Like, what's the least you can do to get to, a very strong point, the most efficient, the most useful, etc. So the least efficient, strongest thing you can do with this piece of paper is coat it in concrete. You do that, it's going to be one of the stronger pieces of paper. But if you take it and you just spin it like this, you can put some pretty heavy stuff on a little tiny piece of paper. I'll just give you, there's my cell phone, right, which weighs a little bit. So this is where I was going with it, and there's a full teddy bear, just saying, I know everybody's jealous. Right in the comments if you love the shirt or if you hate the shirt. But on these new construction homes, the tract homes particularly, they have the ability to not overbuild an HVAC system. So for every house that I built that had including this condo here that I live in, I overbuilt it because I didn't want to spend an incredible amount of money on an engineer figuring out exactly how much return air capacity I need, how much supply, how many BTUs, what my tonnage of air conditioning should be, and like how far it can go down a duct before it starts dissipating based on the insulation factor. All of these things go into a load calculation that on the custom side, you tend to just overbuild because you don't want to hear back from your $1 million buyer that they're pissed off about being hot and sweaty. That's not good. Right. But if you're going to build 500 of the same homes or 1,000 of them, or in some of these mega builder cases, tens of thousands of very, very similar homes, they're engineering them to exactly the moment. So that means they built what they thought was this is going to sound bad, the minimum necessary, which isn't actually bad because that means you get to sell houses to people at an amount that they can afford. Okay, there's nothing inherently wrong with being economical, but that they got there and then stop. They don't go beyond, because why? So, a lot of times what you end up with and what you could have in the situation you were describing earlier is an enhanced humidity from an inefficient heating and cooling system that may be fine on size, may be fine on number of supplies, but may not have a well-placed return air vent or not enough of it.
Huh. Okay. That is really good to know. Interesting.
Yeah, there was a whole, we had a bunch of houses here that had exactly that. And still, as the home warranty guy, if you look me up online, you'll find that we get countless calls as soon as air conditioning season hits. Countless calls from people that say, "Oh my gosh, my upstairs is 5 degrees hotter than my downstairs." And we go, "Do you have a problem today?" Because it just is in some of these houses the way they're built. So it could be that they have a capacity issue from lack of airflow.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I had not heard that yet. Well, another question I wanted to ask you that we discussed we're going to talk about was,
hey, he's a home inspector. He might know if I'm full of crap. Am I full of crap? No, I know what I'm talking about.
He's like, not about this at least, right?
That's good news. That's great news.
Good news. Yeah, that's good. That's a good endorsement.
Wow.
So how did you come across that letter that you posted in that thread? How did that come to you?
So as I mentioned earlier, we have a bunch of clients that are home inspectors. If you go to PriorityLab.com or DiscoverBreeze.com, or if you look up the Inspector Services Group and Residential Warranty Services, you'll find packages for marketing, for guarantees that come with inspections, warranties that come with inspections, and products as well. We do, branding pieces, design work, all of these things. And we even answer their phones, and book their inspections for them. So we're kind of a service provider on the back end of these home inspection deals in a very large percentage of the industry. So I think that was it, right? Yeah.
So that letter came across, that was a client then?
Yes. So basically, if somebody is going to if they feel like they're going to get sued, if they feel like somebody's going to harm their reputation, or if they have a business question, they'll bring it to us. And every once in a while, they'll bring us something like this.
So that was not the client. So, because what it looked like to me was that was a client that went to Dr. Horton during the construction phase of her home, requested that she wanted to bring in a third-party inspector to inspect the property at different phases, and they just told her flat out no.
They did. Now, there was a somewhat of a reversal. I mean, if you look at that forum post, I don't even know how many hits I have on it. I mean, it's a lot. It's like 130,000 or something hits on that one page. So apparently people are searching for that. But it's not just that, because they reversed that and said, we were mistaken. Okay.
Did they end up allowing her to have a third-party inspection?
It depends on your definition of allowing, because here's the thing that they started doing too. So if you call them out on this stuff, like they don't talk about it, they don't mention it, they avoid the issue, they sell the idea that it's covered under this warranty, and they get 80% of people, at least in a bad market, not to do it. Probably today 95. I mean, it's huge. And then once they get somebody to call them out on, hey, we have a right to inspect, then they come back with new standards. Oh, would you like to hear some of them? They're
I would love, yeah.
Now, just to be clear, this is not exclusive to Dr. Horton. This is anybody, okay? They'll come back and say, we need an insurance policy in the many millions of dollars and workman's comp and all these other things that home inspectors just simply don't have. A lot of them are independent business owners with one or two employees. There's just no reason for them to have all this stuff. It's not even like legally required like it is with many trades. But beyond that, they'll say, you can come, but you have to wear a hard hat and dress like all our people, which is weird. Like, when was the last time you did an inspection with a hard hat on?
3 years ago.
3 years ago, he did that. He lost his mind one day 3 years ago. He took some pills. He's better now. But
the same thing. It was the exact same thing.
Well, and I noticed they tried to
it was a new construction.
They tried to bring COVID into it as well, it looked like.
So they definitely said, okay, we don't want people on site because of this. They brought up security issues. I had so this one, I think it was this one that started making all these standards for things that the inspector can't touch that are just super ridiculous.
Wow,
they can't open the electrical panel. The one place that in the house has half of all the electrical connections, they can't open that up to check it out. That'd be too dangerous. Despite in the history of home inspection, not a single new construction company has had a single dollar of liability from a panel. And then they said, they can't use any of the appliances. You can't turn on the appliances because turning it on tests the electrical, the drain, the functionality. But if you just look at it, you can tell a lot, like that it looks good.
It's there.
Yes.
So can you say whether or not that particular client ever got her inspection?
I think that she did, but it was severely restricted. If I recall correctly, don't. No.
Yeah, you're not holding.
Make it gospel here, but I believe that it was severely restricted. They had to come on a certain day. They could only be there for 2 hours. Don't touch anything that moves. It was like, seriously, guys, you're making yourselves look like poop, and you're doing it with the loudest guy. Like don't do that.
Right. Well, and outside of that one email, is there any other, we never did get a clear answer on whether or not that actually is Dr. Horton's policy, right? Because
I think you did, because if you go to that forum post, I believe that that someone from their office came and responded personally in the thread. So I'm pretty sure we got some verification. You might, and I think, like, just in case they were going to delete it, I took a screenshot and posted that there too. So
okay. Yeah, that's that is just wild, because it's it's tough, especially because these are first time home buyers. That's not like these are people that are on their second or third or fourth home, that might be like more well versed in the protocol and what they need to look for. And I've never owned a home, but if I did, I'd absolutely need someone to hold my hand and walk me through it, or else God knows what happened.
So there's some of the I guess how it happens, typical and customary, some things to consider. One other thing, actually, I'll give you two other things, and then give you the last word, and maybe second to last word. We don't know. We haven't been there yet. But the first thing is that these guys, these local guys that are not looking for codes, keep in mind, that is a giant book. So whatever is in that book, I am happy to fully admit that I've never seen, out of, gosh, 4.5 million, 5 million occasions of home inspections that were done by inspectors that were, partners of ours in one way or another, a single new construction home inspection report was 0 defects. And by the way, that included my own job. So, it's kind of subjective. And also, I haven't seen one that said, oh yeah, here you are, you're code problem free. They can't do that because it's too much. Neither can the local municipality, neither can the builder. So it's an unreasonable standard to say, here's a code violation. But if you have something where water's coming in, different story. If you are, well, regardless of how water got in there or where you are in the world, you should probably consider doing some exploratory, if you have this issue, testing. And the first way that I would suggest doing that is a multi-part indoor air quality test using a spore trap through a vacuum pump. And so you're going to do one outside reference, and then inside, multiple, probably one test for every 1,000 square feet, and see if it picks up any spores, which would indicate that there's mold growth somewhere. And so if you don't see it, then it's, somewhere else. It could be in a wall, etc. The other thing is a lot of these roof leaks, you know where they are, where it's likely to come down. A drywaller doesn't cost that much to take out, just enough to get, a view into that wall cavity and see what you got, so that you can start doing some real remediation.
And what is like the typical warranty on something like this? Like, say, like I buy a house, it's built, I'm living there, I'm 3 months in, terrible rainstorm, hurricane, whatever. Hurricane's not a good example because we don't want damage like that, but a normal level rainstorm. And then I realize that there's all this water intrusion. Like, how quickly do these homeowners typically need to realize that there is a problem before the warranty expires and they're no longer covered? And will these problems arise before that happens usually?
So it varies from builder to builder, but there's the basic, you have to do certain things. So, like, for instance, I'm going to make so your face isn't halfway cut off. We're going to get, see those,
I was trying to get away.
Those speakers, we can turn them on right now, make it like some Disco Inferno, and answer this to Disco Inferno. So a HUD standard warranty is going to be what I would call a 1-4-10. So it's 1 year kind of bumper to bumper, mechanical, everything that was installed. That's kind of your sweet spot for making sure that you get any, known issues in. But you said there were some leaks in the roof. So then we have 4 years of roof coverage, and then 10 years of major structural coverage is generally kind of a minimum. Some will go 2. And even if you're listening to this right now and you have a problem and you didn't buy a track home, you weren't handed a written warranty, in almost every state, there's an implied warranty of habitability that would apply to major structural issues of 10 years. So that's for a custom builder that might build, 3 homes a year, and he's already in Barbados, but best of luck.
Okay.
That's where they all go. They go to they build like 3 homes
Never
and then
been
they
there.
leave. They
Never
leave.
been there.
Yeah, no, they don't do that.
So the email that you posted, do you see stuff like that? I know that one was like a little severe, which obviously is why it caught my attention and why you posted about it. But do you see stuff like that fairly often from your clients? Stuff that's similar?
We see crazy stuff all the time.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
sure.
gosh, this week, just this last week, let's take it outside of builders for a moment, because
Mhm.
we picked on them, but I have a little bit of sympathy having been one, for one, for two, the fact that we are dealing in some subjective areas sometimes in these home inspections, and that's kind of unfair. And for three, that they're trying to deliver a pretty good product, pretty darn good. And really it is, square foot by square foot, it's pretty darn good. And it's, it gets better with time, but it's good because it's made a bunch of times. That's part of it. You get a really high quality custom build, fine. Yeah. You can spend, there's no financial reason why you can't have amazing, but if you're looking for a good burger, you go to a fancy restaurant. If you're looking for a burger, that's pretty decent and that your kids love, there's a lot of choices for that. And they make a lot of burgers. So, without going back at them a little bit, let's go to sellers, just sellers in general, because everybody should get a home inspection. I don't care how old the house is. I'll always be a big proponent of this. And in other countries, they don't do it nearly as much as we do here in the US and in Canada. And it's a real shame. I had this one just last week, seller put all this stuff in the sink on the day of the inspection. And then they move in, there's a crack in the sink. Okay, well, there's a little crack. Maybe we can get that repaired. Then it starts leaking. Then they get a guy in there to look at it. And as it turns out, the sink was one piece actually connected to the countertop, molded at one time. And it's like a $15,000 issue.
Wow. Okay.
Get a home inspection and you still can miss stuff, but
Right.
at least they have the fact that they did an inspection and the home inspector has a picture of all that stuff in that sink saying, guys, what do we want to do? And so, you add it all up, they can actually pursue the issue.
Yeah.
So even when an inspector doesn't find something, having their documentation from a third party, woo, save your goose.
So in conclusion, inspections are important.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
And they're so cheap. I mean,
Yeah.
I say cheap, they're inexpensive.
Right, right.
They're not going to break the bank. They're not going to change your life financially.
Long term, what they'll save you. Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer.
Exactly. So that's that. Megan, the law student, helping lawyers everywhere that have no idea what a home inspection is, understand a home inspection.
I didn't until earlier today. So, we're all learning here.
All
But I
right.
appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.